Welcome to the Healers Café, the number one show for medical practitioners and holistic healers to have heart to heart conversations about their day to day lives while sharing their expertise for improving your health and wellness. Welcome to the Healers Cafe. And today I have with me Kimberly Mitchell. She's a mental health advocate, a veteran, and transformational leader dedicated to empowering individuals and small businesses. Now, I'm going to give a little bit more history here because growing up in a household where independence was a necessity, she excelled academically, earning numerous awards, including the Citizenship Medal from the Daughters of the American Revolution. Her resilience was tested when she lost her father at 16, but she channeled her determination into service, enlisting in the Air Force. As the only woman in her vehicle maintenance training class, she set a new standard by earning the highest test scores and later served in Operation Desert Shield or Desert Storm, achieving the rank of E4 sergeant. The transition, I'm going to talk about it with you and how you got to being basically a coach from your business life. I'm going to have you explain all that. But thank you so much for sharing your life experience with us here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I guess my very first question is, I mean, the death of a parent, at the age, still a young age, like 16, um, for you, it led to resilience and you're just going to take care of business, right? And that's sort of from the driver of that, we have within us, right? But later in life is when you started noticing that you were sort of flirting with depression and all of that. So how can you let's talk first of all chronologically how what happened, what did you do and then how did you discover this?
Well, I actually was in the military for 4 years and working in vehicle maintenance, not knowing how to drive, building all those things that you still not quite sure what you want to do in life and what you want to be when you grow up. So when I got out, I decided to go into corporate because I said, nah, how many times am I going to want to climb under a car, changing oil
Sure.
and different car parts? So when I went into the corporate world, it really uh, sparked something inside. And that's where I started training and education. And it was what I thought was the key for my success. And I didn't think twice about the path to pursue. And I just started on that path and went straight forward. But I was always struggling to do the basic things like clean the house, like finish assignments, get places on time. And these were things and when at first I entered the first corporate world, it was just, okay, little annoyances. But as time went on, they got bigger, they got more prevalent, they got more persistent. And that's when I really just started trying to solve those symptoms. Tons of time management classes, tons of guru products about self-sabotage and self-discipline,
Mhm.
lots and lots of different things on finances and budgets because my finances were out of control. It literally was living two lives. There was the corporate me that
Mhm.
looked like I had it all together, had all the answers, were at the different tables. And then the personal me, whose home was a wreck, whose finances were a wreck, whose hygiene was a wreck. I mean, all those basic things. And it
Mm.
wasn't until I was going through the VA, actually, the Veterans Administration. And they said, would you like to have a test for depression? I said, I'm not depressed because the image I had in my head of what depressed looked like was can't get out of bed, doesn't have any social life,
Mhm.
not really sure how to manage just opening their eyes and getting up every day. And that wasn't me. So I didn't think that was a problem until the assessment came back and says, yes, you are dealing with functional depression, and understanding how enlightening that was for me. Putting a name on it almost gave me a target. And now I can start working on that. And that
Mhm.
was really just a couple of years ago.
Wow. But that's like, so, because in my universe, often the diagnosis, like, it can be a relief for people, the way you're describing it, but often it has the opposite effect. It sort of limits people into a box that truly they're capable of getting out. So how did you know inside? I mean, you chose to believe that this diagnosis was accurate because it resonated. But how do you know that you weren't suffering from like a common misconception? Is that, women, it's never enough. They do more than anything. They
Isn't
they take on everything. They're expected to on some strange level. And then there's the other part where it's never enough, right? And
Yes.
we self so how do you know you weren't suffering from that, a misconception rather than from depression?
I honestly wasn't looking for the ultimate solution. Maybe that's the best way to put it.
Okay. Yeah.
Having a name gave me a collection. So it wasn't that I had 12 things that were going on. It gave me one thing. And then from there, I understand exactly what you mean about the diagnosis, dropping you in a box, and all of a sudden they become labels. They
Right.
become like a name tag. I'm Kim Mitchell and I'm suffering from depression. You know, but really what it did is it helped me to say, what do we do now? What do we do? What can we do?
Yeah.
And my personal motto has always been that we are our own greatest resource.
Mhm, mhm,
So I started to take a look at all these things that I'd purchased over the years: calendars, planners, pills, potions, vitamins, all these different programs that I still had that were some literally covered in dust, to say which pieces
mhm,
worked, which
mhm,
pieces resonated.
mhm,
And
mhm,
I started to say, instead of trying to take this patchwork and make these one systems work, I would take a collection of all these different pieces and just work with those, because for me, I didn't need it to be depression. I just needed something to aim for, to fix.
Right. Okay. I understand. That makes more sense. So it gave you the focus
Yes,
to analyze what you could actually be responsible for in your life and shift.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So and then it worked.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Um, you talk about happiness, you talk about joy in your journey. Let's elaborate a little bit on that because I think this might be a pivotal point of your experience if I'm reading it properly.
Oh, absolutely. Because I'll tell you, I can remember, especially in the throes of trying to understand why I couldn't be better. I
Mhm,
remember seeing the Oprah magazines with, hey, choose joy
mhm,
and make joy your daily life. And I would go, yeah, hey, give me a fraction of what you have, and then I'll be joyous all day long. Because to me, that was that I did not have an understanding
mhm,
of joy as a strategy. I didn't have an understanding. To me, joy, when I heard the word joy, it sounded like this elusive emotion that you just painted a smile on every day and every day is roses. But when I really sat down and said, what if we could make joy a baseline? What if
Mhm.
joy became the foundation of decisions? And it wasn't until I was able to get through the two biggest barriers that I believe hold most of us back is fear and limiting beliefs.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so once I started dealing with those and managing those, because I don't believe we'll ever be rid of fear because fear is can be good for us. It's a safety mechanism.
Sure. Mhm.
But we need to manage it. We need to understand when we need to be safe
Mhm.
and when it's okay to move.
Mhm.
So once I got my arms around those two and realized that this is every day. Every day I can say, how am
Mhm.
I going to approach this day with joy and
Mm.
feel it and really be in it? Then that was really a path forward for me.
Mm. So how, if you don't mind, let's expand that a little bit. So how do you, or did you notice a method or a thought process or a body process that allowed you to overcome fear? Like, can you share an example or?
Absolutely, because with fear, it's partially understanding. That's that awareness.
Mm.
What is it that I'm afraid of? Why am I afraid? What's making me afraid? And being able to stop in a moment and really make that examination. And then practice every single day, literally looking myself in the mirror and
Mhm.
saying, "You're okay. You're
Mhm.
safe." And
Mhm.
that kind of builds it because this goes into the neuroplasticity of how we're able to rewire our brains,
Mhm.
which is really the foundation of all the work that I've done.
Mhm.
How
Mhm.
do I change the way this mind is telling me and
Right.
interpreting what I'm seeing?
Mhm.
And most of that fear comes from stories I'm telling myself.
Mhm. Mhm.
So when I can stop and listen to those stories and capture those stories, dissect those stories, change that narrative, then
Yeah.
it really kind of, and then on top of that, that daily practice of saying, you're safe, it's okay, you're safe. That
Mhm.
helps me to manage the fear.
Mhm. Mhm. And the second one was misconceptions, right? Or
Limiting beliefs.
limiting beliefs, yes.
Mhm.
So, eh, and that differs in which way?
Because with limiting beliefs, those are often not even our own voices.
Right. Okay.
We
Mhm.
grow up being told things. One one easy example for me is I might have been in about the 5th grade, and we were in gym class, and they have the cones and you dribble down between the cones and come
Right,
back.
right.
So kids in front of me came back. It was my turn. I slapped that ball all the way down, came back, and got back in line. And my gym teacher leaned to me and he said, "I think you're the worst dribbler I've ever seen." Now, he
Great.
didn't he didn't dash any NBA hopes or WNBA hopes for me because that was not a pursuit.
No, no.
But even at that young age, it stuck with me to say, how many kids must this gym teacher have seen?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
for me to be the worst. I
Yeah,
mean,
right, right.
so I carried that with me for years. Basketball, it's like, I'm terrible at basketball. Terrible. I didn't even bother to pick up the ball. But that wasn't even my belief. That was his
Right.
belief.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we just take these things on when people tell us things, especially in those early years,
Mhm.
and we make them true when they're not.
Right. Yeah, yeah. It's like it's an assumption, right? Like,
Yes.
so it's really, so part of the work is confronting the fear that actually comes up and talking it down by reality and
Yes.
soothing And the other part is actually bringing up the things that aren't ours. Saying,
Absolutely.
off you go.
Exactly. Try
Okay,
to really go, whose voice is that?
right.
Sometimes we take it on, we take it over, but
Mhm.
when we really rewind that tape, we go, "Wait a minute, that that voice is actually my 3rd grade gym teacher."
Right, 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 okay. And then, so how does when you mention joy, right, and really feeling it, what's so, let's say you've dealt with the fear, the current one, whatever that might be. You've removed some of the voices that aren't yours. And then what's the process of of feeling joy? Like, how
Ooh.
does that work?
What would your life be like if you were pain free? If you were one of the millions who suffer from chronic pain, the thought of just one day without it may seem impossible. This is often because conventional medicine tends to fall short in the treatment of pain, opting to prescribe pills or recommend surgery rather than getting to the root cause of the problem. But if you are suffering with emotional or physical pain, there is hope. Join the founder and CEO of Bowen College, Manon Bolliger, live online for your body-mind reboot. Learn how to listen to your symptoms and get to the root cause of your pain. Plus, be trained in basic Bowen therapy moves so that you can reboot your body for optimal health. You don't have to live in pain. You can heal. Stop the pain pill cycle by visiting www.yourbodymindreboot.com to learn more and to register.
I'll tell you really what it comes from is the knowledge, the awareness that I am in control of my entire experience. When we start taking on these voices and these fears, and we hand over our power to our boss, our
Mhm,
spouse,
mhm,
our kids, the neighbor across the street, that powerlessness really resonates through everything that we do.
mhm,
Even so, when we talk about one of the tools I have is the mirror method, the book. And the reason I wrote that book is because I realized that as women, especially,
mhm,
we get up every morning, we go and get dressed, and then we stand in front of that mirror and we beat ourselves to death. We just one smack after the other. Oh my gosh, my wrinkles. Oh my gosh, my hair. Oh my gosh, my neck. And then we walk out of the door with all those self inflicted wounds covering us from head to toe.
mhm,
And when we can start to really peel that back and just recognize that all we need to do is be a loving voice, our voice should be
mhm,
the most loving voice we hear every single day. And
mhm,
we incorporate those things. We take our power back, we be loving to ourselves, we manage our fear. It's so that's where joy is not something that is added to us as we deliver or get delivered from these. Fear is, or joy is always there. It's just covered under all these things. So when
right.
we remove that, that feeling of powerfulness, that feeling of control, that feeling of, I don't, no matter what happens, I can deal with it. I can manage it. That's
Mhm,
the joy.
mhm. So there has to be the awareness then that there's negative self-talk,
Oh, yeah.
right? Because I mean, um, yeah, I don't know. I don't have a mirror on my way out, so I often I just show up and I'm on a Zoom call. Oh yeah, okay, good. I'm so glad I my hair was clean. But if you're the thing is, if you're aware that for most people, it's about, I think it's 80% of our thoughts are negative thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Like, if knowing that should really allow us not to listen to that voice, right? Because we know where else could it come from but somewhere negative, right?
It is so easy to miss because it happens in a flash. It happens almost rote because we do it so often. I mean, I can think of how many times have I went to find my glasses. I couldn't find them and like, oh, here they are, silly. Well,
Right,
what's silly about that? And I don't even think twice about calling myself silly. But would
right.
we ever say that to our child? If our
Yeah.
child couldn't find her glasses, would we say, here, they're right over there, silly? We wouldn't.
At least hopefully not.
Right. But we do it
Yeah,
so easily
yeah,
to ourselves. And so
yeah.
one of the things, and the other product is the Joy, Journey to Joy product that has a tool in it where you capture that self-thought. You capture it and you really face it every single day. So you
Mm,
you start to become very attuned to what you're saying to yourself.
right. So you
And
can,
once you, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, so you can sort of distance yourself and go, that's just my thoughts. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. Because even with the limiting beliefs, there's a tool in there to say, let's say I say that I want to learn Spanish.
mhm,
And I say, I really want to learn Spanish. That's my belief.
mhm,
Well, what do I do that supports that belief? Well,
mhm.
I purchased a lifetime subscription to a Spanish software.
Right.
So, what do you do that's in opposition to that belief?
Mhm. You don't
I
open it.
haven't opened it. Exactly. I haven't opened it. I don't use it. So now, what do you really believe about that? Oh,
Right.
well, maybe I don't believe I can ever learn Spanish. Maybe I
Mm,
don't think that I have what it takes to be fluent.
mhm.
So is that, and then that's the final thing is that true?
Right, right.
Is that true? And so, and again, some of the things are just awareness. When we look at that, we go, oh my goodness, I never even thought of it. Maybe I can just start scheduling twice a day, opening the computer for 10 minutes and getting under the software. So a
Right,
lot of
right.
it is really just that, let's take a look at it, let's capture it, let's reframe it, and let's test it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also possible that, you want to learn Spanish for the wrong reasons,
Exactly.
right? That it's camouflaging some other,
Absolutely.
desire or need, and Spanish is the excuse.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting, yeah. So, I mean, you've certainly heard the work of Byron Katie, right? Loving
Oh,
what
yes.
is. The
Absolutely.
questions, yeah, yeah. When you were saying, is it true? I think in the end, that is the bottom line question. Is it true? And how do you know it's true?
That's right.
And then how do you feel when you think that thought, right?
That's right.
And a lot of that, I've used her work a lot to just, I mean, we all do our version of it spontaneously how it comes out, but fundamentally it's a huge shift
It
of,
is.
of awareness, and
It
can
is. And
can be playful.
yes. And so like with the course that I do, the true course,
Mhm.
that's the cornerstone of
Right.
the foundation of it.
Yeah.
You decide what's true. You literally write your definition of true. And everything you do, you test against that definition. Is
Mhm.
it true? Is it true that I can never play basketball, that I'm the worst dribbler on the
Yeah.
planet?
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's test it.
Right, right. It could get dangerous, but yeah. And then if you find out it is true, oh well.
Exactly. You say, well, I can check basketball off my list of career options. You
Exactly.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of what's the worst case scenario if that is true, right? It may be
Exactly.
nothing.
Exactly. But you know, when we really tell ourselves these stories, that's what's really so fascinating to me. When I really started taking stock of the
Mm.
stories I was telling
Yeah,
myself.
yeah,
And I said, you know, if I can tell myself a story, why wouldn't I tell myself the best story? Make
right.
myself the hero of the story instead of this worst version that just demeans me and makes me feel bad.
And so, may I ask you this question? You don't have to answer, of course, or you can circumvent it any which way possible. But did you find it necessary to take pharmaceutical options?
I did not.
No. Okay. Because
No.
I have found most people, um, they don't need to,
Right.
and most people can do, if they do very conscious work like the one you're describing of yours. And what's the name of your book again? Sorry.
The book is Hey Beautiful, the Mirror Method.
Hey,
And
beautiful. Oh, great.
the system, because we start out, that's the way I start my
Yeah,
conversation with myself. Hey, beautiful.
yeah,
Because that alone kind of
yeah.
lifts us up a little bit. Hey,
I
how are you?
yeah. I can see the joy in you.
Right.
Great.
And then the longer system is the Journey to Joy method, and that's a good year-long program. And I'm so pleased with that because you really get to own your work in that program.
That's right.
And that's really the joy. Like I said, the idea that my life is not over past 50, the idea that I can still do a whole lot of what I've always wanted to do. I literally just taught myself how to roller skate 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
I've been wanting to do that for years,
Wow.
but I kept telling myself, you're too old, you're gonna fall, you're gonna break something, you're not gonna be able to work. All these things. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's okay. You can do it. You're even if you fall, you're not gonna just completely break into pieces.
Right. Yeah, that's so
So
good.
all of that work to understand that
Okay.
it's never too old and you're never too old and it's never too late.
I have one more question for you, but it's the last one because we're right at our time.
Okay.
But in your, I mean, most people learn something no matter what they do in their lives.
Mhm.
When they're looking retrospectively, they go, oh, yeah, great. I see why I needed this or that experience. My question to you is your experience in the military, is there something that you learned from there that is very clear?
Absolutely, the structure, without a doubt. That everything was very systematic in the military. Documentation, processes, the way you dressed, everything had a system. And I use the word safety a lot in my work, but you don't realize, I didn't realize until I got out how safe it was to have that structure.
Very
How
interesting.
you know you're not having to stress or worry about the way things are done or how things are going to be done because it was very prescribed. And that is what I enjoy, I learned, and I brought into all the work that I do today.
Great. Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for sharing your time, and it was very enlightening.
Thank you. I really had a good time.
So, what I really enjoyed from my discussion with uh, Kimberly Mitchell, is that not so much all the things that many people have shared about, our unconscious and our um, what we need to question that comes up, which she gave great examples of. But at the very end, she said what really helped her from the military training was the impact of structure. And so I wanted to discuss that for a moment, because for her, obviously, it's acknowledged and seen, and she uses it in her work. But the question I would have to all of you is, where does structure fit in to the work you do or in your lives? And bringing it back to Bowen College, the methodology has a structure to it. And it really made me think how when people learn and start, they're fundamentally following the structure. And as the practitioner becomes more intuitive, the structure is there in the background, but they're using more of their creative minds afterwards, so, but the structure is fundamental, because to become just creative without any structure and call it something is much more challenging. So it reinforced in me the importance of having a baseline structure to a methodology, and then learning to fly afterwards. So yeah, it was exciting. Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café. If you haven't already done so, please like, comment, and subscribe with notifications on, as I post a new podcast every Wednesday with tons of useful information and tips for natural healing that you won't want to miss.